to the cloud. Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the first Trusted Firmware Technical Forum. I emailed out a couple of weeks back the fact that we're going to start holding these on the trustedfirmware.org website. We have notification. Maybe some notes would be useful to let you give you guys an idea of what we're hoping to achieve. As I said, my name is Joanna Farley. I'm an engineering manager at ARM. I look after the Trusted Firmware A-class team. And we, of course, are contributing along with a lot of you guys to the Trusted Firmware -A project. So what I'm hoping to do in this meeting is follow very
Have other people lost audio?
I cannot hear anything. I thought it was just me.
Me neither.
Yeah, I think we lost Joanna.
We lost Joanna. Joanna, we lost you.
Can you guys still hear me and see me?
We can now.
Yes, I'm not quite sure what this is.
But your screen has disappeared since.
Is it? Oh. Is it sharing again now?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Right, so yes, as I was saying, the format is a 1 hour duration where we hope to cover 1 or 2 technical discussion areas. We would request, or we hope some materials would be prepared. It doesn't have to be a presentation with loads of slide deck. You know, it's anything that's a useful discussion, but I suspect PowerPoint, such things is probably going to be the norm. If there's demos people want to do, either from you know, any member of the project, that's the goal as well. And then following the format of TFM, that we normally finish up with an open discussion if there's anything on any of the mailing list topics that have been held recently. You know, it gives us an opportunity to have a real-time discussion. The agenda I'm setting in advance, so I would hope a few days before the meeting to give an idea of what we may well be talking about, so folks can decide whether they want to join. And we would welcome, you know, any items to be presented by any of the other project contributors. It doesn't have to be just ARM folks who are presenting here. You know, I would encourage, you know, anybody who has something that they want to share with the project and want to talk about. And I would suggest sending it to the mailing list so that we can, you know, get notification. People can see what we may do, and then I will do the organising to set the agenda. That is basically all I've got from a very introductory sense.
Hey, Joanna, is the next meeting planned for the 26th of March?
Oops, yeah.
That's right, okay.
Yeah.
That will probably gonna clash with the TF.org board meeting, but that's fine. People are probably disjointed.
All right, okay. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do at the moment is go on the weeks that TFM isn't running theirs, so we're offset. So next week there's a TFM related meeting. I'm planning it to be the TFA one to be at this time of day. I think we believe that the majority of our partners are sort of European or to the west of the UK in the US. If there's the call and request for something to do earlier, I will look into figuring out how to organise such a thing, whether it to be alternate, early morning UK and or later in the afternoon, just to get the best coverage. As I said, planning to record, and hopefully if I've pressed the right Zoom buttons, this session will be recorded, so that we can, people who can't make the calls can see the sessions. So that's my brief introduction. If there's any brief questions about the format, I'm happy to take them now. If not, Olivia, if you're preparing, I can stop sharing and we could talk about the Debug-FS. But is there any questions about the forum at this time?
Hi, Varun here.
Hi, Varun.
Just an informational question. Basically, I wanted to understand, you also have a testing framework. So is this the right forum where we can also talk about the testing framework in the future, or you will be?
So are we referring here to the TFA test repository and the code that we have there?
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
No, this will be an opportune place to talk about that as well in future. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'll stop sharing. And Olivia, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. If I stop sharing, hopefully you'll have better luck than me trying to share your screen.
Actually, I just managed at the moment to connect through Zoom, and so that's timely.
Okay. Yes. So, oh, there we go.
Are you seeing the first slide?
I am indeed. Hopefully, other folks are as well.
Is everybody seeing the first slide?
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, thanks. So I'm glad today to participate to this first iteration of the Tech Forum and to present a feature that has been introduced recently to the trusted firmware A, called with some generic term Debug-FS. So I will explain what it's about. So yeah, what does it mean within the TFA firmware, and also a few words on some support we have through a Linux kernel driver that has just been upstreamed very recently. So yeah, this comes from a simple problem statement related to exposing firmware debug data to higher layers, meaning firmware running on ARM platform at EM3, and so about the possibility to expose internal measurements or internal state or status from the firmware to the upper layers up to EL0, like through a console in the Linux console. So we already had some feature called the profiling measurement within TFA, which is already using an ad hoc SMC interface to gather the profiling measurements. And so the idea is for the next features needing to expose firmware data to use a common interface and a common protocol to the higher layer, rather than each and every feature using a new ad hoc SMC interface. So the proposal is to provide some generic firmware interface to the higher layers, as said. And the idea is to expose a subset of drivers and files as a file hierarchy to the higher levels. So currently the feature is built within the BL3.1 as a runtime service. This is a debug-only option called use Debug-FS. So that's for now an important part, as we don't necessarily want to expose critical data on production devices. So we keep this option for now only as debug option. And we have some build time configuration describing what do we want to expose to the higher level. So this is the generic part, and to make it a bit more illustrative, there is an implementation example that I will describe here. So the idea is to provide this file abstraction to the Linux Debug-FS interface. So the idea is that the firmware exposes abstracted files, and at the end of the day, you can use Linux user space tools to work on those abstracted files. So internally, the design, it leverages from a 9P layer. For those who know, this is derived from the Plan 9 driver model. So there are 9 primitives. So create, open, read, write, close, seek, start, bind, mount. This is not totally covered here, but there is a notion of driver configuration through read-write through an abstracted file, other than the Linux I/O control mechanism. And we have the notion of namespaces, and what is the core of the functionality here is that those 9P primitives are tunneled through silicon provider SMC conduit. So there are, we can imagine a couple of use cases. The one which is exposed here is the ability to expose the firmware image package contents. But there are many use cases beyond that, like exposing live performance data or boot time information, for example, for profiling the boot process. It's not described here, but it's just ideas for using the feature. So how does the Linux kernel driver works? So when the Linux boots and loads the driver, the idea is that it is able to enumerate what the firmware exposes as the file hierarchy by working some /namespace directory. So on the left-hand side, that's what the firmware exposes, a set of files. And the kernel driver, it works this list and issues kernel functions, so-called Debug-FS create directory, Debug-FS create file, to expose those files to the user space. So this will be located at /syskernel debug TFA, and the hierarchy is in a way mirrored to the user space. So high level, how does it work? On the command line, Linux command line, you just type a user space command, cat, and /syskernel debug TFA blobs feed.bin. So this will go through a read syscall and go through the generic Linux Debug-FS hooks down to the kernel driver, invoking some Debug-FS read. And this is where there is kind of common library, wrapper 9p wrapper library, invoking the 9p primitives that were described before. So the so-called open read close 9p primitives through an SMC invocation. So this ends up to L3 through the Debug-FS service and the 9p layer on the bottom of the slide, and address a specific driver which is hooked to this 9p layer. So the blue parts are generic parts, and this devfip is just an example of a driver which is able to expose the FIP file or the FIP image. But there can be a number of drivers here that can be exposed to the higher layer. And in more concrete and visual terms, this is how it looks like. So when at the top, when Linux boots, we just have a hint that the ARM Debug-FS driver is loaded and initialized, and that's the step where the kernel driver iterates and walks through the firmware file hierarchy. And then down to the command line, you can just use the regular commands like find ls to get the file hierarchy. And you can then use at the bottom of the screen commands such like xsd or checksum to actually exercise user space commands on abstracted files. So here the abstracted file is the fib.bin, which is a plain binary. So you can just dump it or do a checksum on it. That's the intent of driver. So obviously, in this syskernel debug TFA, that's where you could expose also what we said, like boot process measurements or performance measurements. There can be many ideas around this. So similarly, this can be used for our bare metal test cases, so-called TFTF. So we can just use the same kind of 9p wrapper API just below the TFA test suite, invoking the primitives. And this will work just as it works for the Linux kernel driver, invoking the 9p primitives through SMC and down to the 9p layer. So this is just an example of how you use that. On the right-hand side, you see the invocation of the open, read, close primitives. It really looks like the system call primitives that you would use when developing a Linux user space application, for example. So the output of that, so there was a design proposed to the Trusted Firmware mailing list back in November last year. So this, in a way, initiated some common way to explain our new designs within TFA. Kind of kickoff of the process. You can find documentation merged into the TFA trees as component documentation, Debug-FS design, and details about the SIP service. And the sample Linux kernel driver is pushed to the Linux kernel public mailing list. You can have a look at the link provided here. And that's the end of this presentation. So if you have questions, don't hesitate. And you can, for sure, you can also interact through the TFA mailing list related this design, which is still open to evolve and open to the discussion and to adding new use cases. Thank you for your attendance. Are there questions?
Yeah, quick question. So is it tied to the debug build of TF? So as in, do you have to have a debug build to use Debug-FS? Is that what you said?
So you mean debug build of the TFA? Yes, that's the intent. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, nothing prevents you using that on production or release builds, but I would say it's better using or restricting this feature only to debug builds. Now, maybe you find. Sorry.
Oh no, the reason I ask is, yeah, for example, if you want to get performance data, right? Getting performance data on a debug build is not that useful, right? So you want to know what the performance is on a release build. So you probably want to have a way to
right. So
Debug-FS and
fine. So then, to be totally frank and honest, the build flow won't prevent you to build a release version of the TFA with the same option. It's just a disclaimer at our end that we would prefer that you use that only for debug builds. But if you have a very precise use case doing measurements with release builds, the build flow, the TFA build flow doesn't prevent doing that.
There's an additional security attack vector basically here, isn't there? So you've got to seriously consider if you want this in your release builds.
oh, I mean, yeah, it would only be an internal build, right? So it would only be an internal build that you'd use it for convenience.
Yes, so please restrict this to your internal release build, but it's preferable not to use that in the field production build.
Right.
I guess it's all about how do we secure this feature if people wanted to have this in their release builds, and the hoops and capabilities, the secure debug capabilities that would need to be attached to this. But today it is what you see for debugging purposes. But possibly there's future enhancements. But of course that's all down to the need. Of the repository and the folks who contribute to this project.
Actually, it's a good opportunity to have this forum to advertise the feature and maybe collect new use cases and ways to harden and make it more secure in a way. So comments from the community and sharing the use cases is really helpful to us also.
And part of the reason for developing it is it's a piece of innovation, and of course it's a lot easier to when you've got some real code to look at and play with and design rather than just talk about ideas. So it's out there for an RFC, a request for comment, and we're more than willing to enter a dialogue on how this might be able to be taken forward, add extra capabilities. Perhaps there's performance considerations in the way it's implemented today, but it is what it is to expose and stimulate discussion.
Yep, thanks.
Other questions?
Hi, Olivier, Varun here.
Hey.
So I see that, you've been using Linux, and I think Linux Debug-FS has been the primary testing vehicle for all of this. I just wanted to know, are there any plans in the future to support any other operating systems other than Linux? Or maybe if we can treat it as, are there plans to, test this out in the TFA test framework? And if that's the plan, then how much of this would change, or will it even change?
So you mean the TFTF and the TFA test suite?
Right.
Actually, there is already a test case in production testing the feature. So you can browse through the. I can point you the exact location, but there is already a test exercising this feature, and you can freely use that already in the TFTF test suite.
Okay, and so the test suite can test all the features that are present in the firmware.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yes, you're right.
Okay,
yes.
Thanks.
So should I give the presentation back to you, Joanna?
Sure. If there's no more questions about Debug-FS and nobody else wants to comment.
Looks like not.
Yeah, looks like not. Yeah, so wasn't quite sure how long any discussion. This is our first time of running this, so hopefully that was interesting, or at least has generated some thoughts with folks to take away. As I said, we're trying to follow the model today of how TFM normally holds theirs. So if I share my screen again. So the next stage of what TFM normally does is we have an opportunity for people to talk about anything that's been discussed recently on the mailing list, in real time with folks. So, however, I'm very much driven by you guys. If any of you guys want to sort of follow up any of the discussions that we've had in March or perhaps February, if you don't, then I'm probably running out of material to talk about on this particular call. But is there anything from the recent mail archives or the recent mail threads that folks are interested in? So these were the things that were discussed in March. I'm not hearing anybody shouting out.
So hi, Varun here again. So
Hi,
I know I have had email discussions with some folks, and you as well. It's been, I think I also started a thread on the mailing list. I don't know if you plan to have another session for this, but we had a discussion around the reviews and the process of the reviews and how that is structured right now, and take that discussion ahead. Yes,
so that was a consideration for a discussion on the very first one that we've held on. So what we're doing we're trying to come up with a common process that TFA and TFM can follow, under the auspices of trustedfirmware.org to improve, I guess, the experience and try to see what we can do to remove the backlog and the bottlenecks that we have, because I appreciate contributors have got their platform patches that they would like upstreamed, and today it can be a challenge sometimes to get these things all approved. So we're working on a proposal to try and give control to more of the contributors and try to streamline the process. Unfortunately, it's not quite ready yet, but what it will be is a future, whether it's ready for the next one in 2 weeks' time or a little bit further out. This is something that we're going to want to share with you guys to get feedback on sort of new processes of how best we can move forward. Hopefully that gives you some hope for to improve the performance of getting patches through the system, but unfortunately it's not quite ready today.
There's a discussion ongoing on the. Hello, can you hear me?
You're very faint, Sobi.
Hello, is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, so there is a discussion going on in both in the TFM mailing list on these lines and also in the TSC mailing list, which is open, the the technical steering committee mailing list. So yeah, there are some discussions ongoing how to unify this if possible between the projects. But it's a journey. But I think one of the first steps that we could do from our end is documenting some of the implicit assumptions on that we have regarding how platform patches get merged, or what is the process to be followed. So there's an action item on us to make this more clear on the current processes, and we hope to do that sometime soon. Yeah, but then there will be the bigger change of how things will be streamlined across projects later.
I suspect how it would work is that we'll come up with document the proposal and share it on the mailing list, and then it's an opportunity at the next forums, no doubt, for TFM and TFA to discuss things in more detail, to get feedback, and hopefully, as I said, move things forward.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That was helpful. Another question was around the opening up the build logs and internal failure logs from the CI system. Can you add more color to that discussion?
Yes, in that we're in a process, as you guys know, that traditionally when patches are submitted, we've got various Gerrit, CI +1, +2 rights that need to be set to allow the actual patches to be pulled inside the ARM firewall, so it could be run on the internal CI. And part of the process we're working with the board and Lenaro is to move the CI into the open, and aspects of it are available today. If you browse around the trustedfirma.org site, you may start to see some new repositories and other pages that are starting to list things. Now it's still a work in progress, and we're not quite at the point, I think, of releasing something that that does everybody, every platform build, which is sort of one of probably the first steps that we want to do. But then gradually over time, we want to introduce the rest of the CI that we have internally today, externally, so that you as partners and contributors can see the results of the CI directly without having ARM involved, having to act as a middle person to not only set the CI off, but also report back results to you guys, which again is one of the pain points I appreciate in trying to push patches through review.
Thanks. I have one more, but I think I'll open it up to other folks. If there are no more, then I'll ask that question again.
Yes, so okay. I had a question around specifications. So is there a plan? So I know ARM writes a lot of specifications, right? And a lot of it is implemented in TFA. So I'm wondering if this forum will be a place where early specs will be shared, or is most of the work going to be based off of public specs?
Do you want me to tell that one, Joanna?
If you could, please.
Yeah, no, this is not the right forum for that. This is just about the implementation, the TFA implementation of those specs, which is always going to be based off public versions of those specs. So discussion, yeah, our architecture group will have their own mechanisms for feeding back on early versions of the specifications separately to this.
Okay, so I guess then does that mean the implementation is going to be driven by ARM too, since I'm guessing the contributors in ARM will have access to it early?
So, sorry, could you repeat the question? You were quite quiet.
Oh, no, so I was asking, so for example, SPCI, right? So is the implementation going to be mostly driven by ARM, since people at ARM potentially have access to the specifications early?
Not really. I mean, the excuse me, my voice is going. The ARM implementation team will have access to the specs early, but that will be only for the purposes of feeding back on those specifications. The implementation will be always based on the public version of those specs.
So I guess, sorry, I'm trying to chime in as well, Matteo here. I guess it depends what you mean by early. So our architecture team have the final word on when they are ready to share draft versions of the spec. In some cases, they put it publicly on developer, even if the spec is still on beta, which is the case of SPCI. So SPCI today is publicly available in beta. That's an early version, if you want. Clearly, there are conversations with the implementation team, so with TFA, on when is the right time to start implementation based on the feedbacks that they are receiving on the spec. If by early you mean something not public, then yeah, you have to reach out to the ARM architecture team.
And to be clear, the implementation team is not going to push patches that reads on a non-public spec.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions? I know, Varun, you've got one, but anybody else?
Maybe you can put on screen also the February mailing list that were quite heavy on topics.
Mm. Not hearing from anything else, but what people read through that, if there's anything they want to bring up. So Varun, do you want to fire off your third question?
Yeah, sure. So I know that you have the internal build system and you have a lot of platforms internally that you test at ARM. But I also know that there are, I mean, all the platforms that are supported in the firmware right now, my assumption is you do not have boards internally that test those. So are you having discussions internally to, try to host these platforms somewhere outside your CI system? For example, we have 4 at NVIDIA, which are not part of the ARM CI system. So it would be, and it would be helpful for us if we can host them here, and also it would allow us to keep on testing them and also feedback the results back into the main CI system that you have. So I don't know if there has been a discussion earlier, but
yeah,
that's what I was.
Yeah, so the goal, I mean, as you know, we use the Juno physical board internally, but as part of the OpenCI, Linaro, who are hosting the CI and much of the infrastructure, have now set up. That's one of the things that is available today, is the Juno board being used as a physical board in their lava farm. And I think there is the goal that going forward, if partners want to donate boards, or I believe Linaro has something called a federated capability, where you as a platform vendor, can have host your own lava instance and integrate it into the OpenCI. So that's a capability as well. So I think yes, I think we would like to encourage partners to contribute boards and join the federated lava system to get integrated into the CI going forward, such that when patches from anybody comes back or gets submitted, people buy those patches. But it's very much something for the future, and very much something for the what we envisage for the OpenCI.
Just to qualify that though, Joanna, there's obviously a cost to hosting those boards within Linaro, and that cost has to be borne by the trusted firmware members. So, and any additional boards would have to be approved by the members, and is only likely to be approved by other if they're member boards.
Sure. It's perhaps an incentive to join. Hopefully that answered your question, Varun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I would be more interested to host the boards at NVIDIA site and then feed into the OpenCI as the first step, and then eventually we can see if we can donate any boards. But I think I mean, from NVIDIA's perspective, there is definitely interest in hosting on our own side.
Good to know.
So, unless anybody's got any comments on the, as I said, on the February mailinglist discussion, or any other questions that they would like to give us at this time, I think I've sort of run out of content.
Joanna,
Hi.
Olivier speaking.
Hi, Olivier.
Hi. As I'm seeing the list of messages, I see the defects reported by Coverity Scan. Is it worth reiterating to the audience what's the policy towards fixing Coverity Scan failures for external platforms?
Yeah, sure. What you mean, these? So one of the things that we've got set up is using when patches are submitted part of the CI, it issues them for Coverity scans for static analysis, and we've set it up such that when the Synopsys Coverity server that supports open source projects finds Coverity issues, they post them to the list, and I think you see a few of them here. So, as part of submitting your patches, if you guys keep an eye out for these posts, that could help you, correct any or at least address, even if you triage them away, any defects that are reported on your more recent patches. I have reached out to a few folks, just try to generate the folks to start looking at these when failures, but I probably won't do that forever. So do please keep an eye on the list to pick up when you see Coverity failures, just to check that any of your patches that have gone in recently, whether there's any Coverity issues you should address.
Just to add on top of that, so this is currently set up so that everybody can view the defects. But if you actually want to triage anything, like marking it as a false positive or just taking ownership of the defect, then you need a different role. And at some point, we try to add all the platform maintainers listed in the maintainers file as having this role. But obviously new people are joining the project, and so basically if you want to have the permissions to triage defects, just feel free to ping us. First you need to register on Coverity, and then just ping us to add you to the correct role, and we'll do that. We'll do that for you.
Yeah, so in here there's links to the servers to view the Coverity failures, or you can get to the site and hopefully see what you need to do to get access.
On this same topic, does it make sense to have the Coverity scans when people post their changes for review, so that these can be caught earlier?
Unfortunately, it's not really possible, because being a free service provided by Synopsys, they've got to set a limit on the number of analysis that people can do. Because if it was unlimited, obviously it would cost them a lot of money. So we've only got like a dozen of analysis that we can do per week, which means that we only run that in the overnight tests. So basically we run that on the integration branch. And that will test all the patches that have been merged during the day. But that means that unfortunately, patches first had to be merged, and you only see the issues afterwards. But we can't really do anything about that, I think.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. I didn't know that. And also on the static analysis part, is there discussion to increase the different scans? For example, there is a, I mean, at NVIDIA, we have other scans other than the MISRA and the Coverity. We also look for code complexity. There are open source tools that can help you get that. Then there are other security related scans that we also, we verify the code against the CERT standard. So are there any plans, or have you had internal discussions around this?
So I think expansion of the CI is always something we can talk about, especially for the open CI. I think as part of migrating across different types of static analysis tools that are free to open source projects, including them. Now, some of the Coverity scans, ARM has our own that we pay for, that we can run additional things that that aren't available on the free version, and we do try and report on issues that we find. I guess trying to get access to additional Coverity checks that you have to pay for is something that would need to be discussed. And as sort of Dan sort of hinted earlier, anything that we try to do as part of the Trusted Firmware.org project needs to be funded by somebody. But if there are other static analyzers that we could hook into the project as part of our Open CI initiative, I think that would be a good discussion to have on the mailing list to take forward and see what we can do. Okay, any other questions? We got 8 minutes left before the end of the call. I'm pleased.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just about to say, maybe we can ask which other topics people would like to see in the next occurrence of the call. If there is any preference for specific topics so that we can come prepared.
Yeah, well, that's something, as I introduced earlier, that I would welcome those things on the mailing list. But if anybody's got things on their mind right now, I appreciate Varun and probably some of the other partners are interested in the review process, and that is something we're looking into doing a session on that. But is there any other, as Matteo says, is there any other subjects that are close to people's hearts?
I think the secure boot process and how it works and it's implemented in the trusted firmware might be a good topic of interest, at least to us at NVIDIA. I don't know if it would be helpful for others, but yeah, if we have enough interest, then maybe we can have a session around that.
Sure, we can look into that. And again, remember what I said at the beginning, if you as contributors to the project want to present something, we'll be more than happy to run those in these sessions as well. I appreciate nobody might not necessarily want to sign up to do something now, but please do think about it. Okay, I'm not hearing much more, but if there are any other final things folks want to talk about, we've only got a few minutes left. If not, I'll end the session and thank you again for joining. Hopefully, folks will find this useful. Not hearing anything, so I suggest we terminate the call, and I'd be pleased to talk to you guys on the mailing list, and again in a couple of weeks' time, and we'll work on a session to do there. And as I say, just one last plug again: if there's things you guys want to talk about or can present, please do submit something that we can try and schedule.
Prior to the finish, Joanna, maybe just my marketing pitch here. So the day before the next tech forum, Linaro is going to host the tech days. So in substitution of Linaro Connect, there is going to be a set of remote sessions that will be hosted by Linaro and then shared publicly. And there will be one specifically for trusted firmware. It will be a project update with new stuff coming out. So I guess Linaro is going to publish the schedule for this 2 days. It's 2 days on the 24th and 25th of March. And just keep out an eye on the Linaro website. There will be a schedule published with the timelines for joining the sessions.
Okay, any last requests or comments? Not hearing anything. So thank you everybody, and speak to everybody next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.